He was a millionaire, but he lived in a cold house where the silence was louder than any gala party. After losing his wife during the birth of their daughter, he made a silent vow, never to love again, never to allow himself to feel, never to open up, because deep down he believed that love destroys. But what if healing comes from where you least expect it? What if a simple woman, with a calm smile and a hidden pain in her eyes, enters your life, not to bring chaos, but to mend what grief has shattered? This is the story of a man who discovered that true love doesn't shout, it whispers. And when it whispers, you either listen or you lose it. And what he almost lost was exactly what could have saved him. Grant Ellington is the typical widowed millionaire who seems to have everything, except inner peace. His eyes carry the silent pain of a man who lost the love of his life abruptly, during the birth of his daughter, Ava. Imagine this. A man used to having absolute control over his life is now a prisoner of an emptiness that no fortune can fill. In his case, overcoming loss is not just about moving forward. It's a daily challenge to unlock emotions that have been sealed away. This emotional wall keeps him isolated from the world, creating a distance that feels almost tangible. It's an open wound no one can see, but it eats away at him from within. Those close to him describe him as strong, yet distant, as if his soul were trapped somewhere between yesterday and today. Since that tragic moment, Grant became closed off, nearly unreachable. Not by choice, but as a natural defense mechanism, building walls too high to climb. What we often forget is that emotional healing doesn't happen automatically, nor does it follow a predictable timeline. For him, every step toward acceptance is a battle against the fear of feeling again. Anyone who has experienced profound loss knows what that feels like. The heart becomes caught in a trap, where pain and love blur together. And in that conflict, Grant remains, at least for now, more of a hostage to his past than a protagonist of his present. He distances himself from people, avoids displays of affection, as if protecting himself from pain is the only way to survive. But this attitude, however understandable, only delays the inevitable process of emotional healing. His daughter Ava grows up under the watchful eye of a powerful man who remains emotionally distant, battling his own ghosts. She is the bridge between Grant and the possibility of healing, though he doesn't realize it at first. Often, the family dynamic becomes strained because her father's grief builds a wall between them. A wall she too feels, though in a different way. It's as if pain both connects and separates them at once. How many times have you witnessed or lived through a moment when emotional pain felt unbeatable, yet a thin thread of hope still lingered? That's exactly what Grant is experiencing. The journey to overcome loss is never simple. It's a process of small steps, setbacks, and attempts that demand courage and resilience. This is where real transformation begins, when we understand that emotional healing is not about forgetting, but about learning to live with the pain without letting it control our lives. Grant is not just a widowed millionaire. He's a father, a figure of authority, and a role model for his daughter. The challenge of running a multimillion-dollar company is now tangled with the need to be emotionally present for Ava. This creates a constant tension between what the world expects of him and what he's truly able to offer. Too often, leaders neglect their own emotional needs, believing that showing weakness might damage their image. But real strength lies in acknowledging and working through vulnerability. Even unintentionally, Grant is showing that even the strongest people need emotional healing to build a lasting legacy. When we talk about overcoming loss, we're not just talking about moving past someone's physical absence. We're talking about breaking free from the beliefs that tie us to suffering. Grant represents that silent struggle so many people face, the inner battle to rewrite their story so pain doesn't define their destiny. Like a plant that dares to bloom after a brutal winter, Grant is on the edge of a new season in his life. The promise that love can rise from the ashes is what keeps his inner flame alive, bringing hope for what lies ahead. Emily Carter arrived at the Ellington estate quietly, but her presence was quickly felt. Unlike many nannies who simply did their job, she brought with her a simplicity that hid an uncommon emotional strength. It didn't take much to see that behind her calm smile was a woman who had already faced her own share of pain. For Ava, used to the silence and distance of her widowed millionaire father, Emily became a new source of comfort, someone who offered genuine attention without hurry or pretense. That bond began to open the door to something no one expected, an emotional healing that was almost invisible, yet unmistakably present. Often, it's the quiet, steady presence that creates the biggest impact. Emily didn't need to prove anything, just to be truly there, like someone who understands the complexity of life and the journey through grief. The impact Emily had on the family dynamic was immediate, even if subtle. She didn't just take care of daily tasks. She genuinely cared about Ava, about her routines, her fears, and her dreams. That attention created a safe space where the girl could express herself, something that had seemed impossible under the emotional rigidity of her father. Emily had a special way of connecting with Ava, using simple words, gentle play, and active listening that resonated deeply with the child. Her approach sparked a natural curiosity in those observing. Who is this woman who, with her calm and authenticity, can break down barriers built over years of pain and disconnection? It's an invitation to reflect on the power of empathy in emotional healing, a reminder that sometimes what we need most is the sincere presence of another person. And for anyone who has ever felt invisible or alone, Emily represents the hope that true connections can come from the most unexpected places. The beauty of this bond lies in its natural rhythm, as Emily allows Ava to discover and grow at her own pace, showing that time and patience are essential ingredients in any healing journey. Beneath her apparent simplicity, Emily carried a life story that had prepared her for that exact moment. Like many who have faced loss and adversity, she knew that the road to healing is not linear, and that love, especially when unexpected, can be the greatest force for transformation. She wasn't there to replace anyone, but to help Grant and Ava reconnect with themselves and rediscover the meaning of affection. This delicate balance of care and respect is what made her presence so impactful. In fact, that's exactly what sets a truly special nanny apart. Not just a caregiver, but a catalyst for change. Emily understood that her role wasn't to fix everything at once, but to be present in the small, consistent actions that, over time, transform lives. And so, the arrival of Emily Carter didn't just change the daily routine of the Ellington household. It sparked a deep movement of healing, emotional recovery, and a redefinition of love. Even when life feels frozen in the past, there is always a chance to begin again, often through people who arrive unannounced, but leave eternal marks. The story of Grant, Ava, and Emily is only just beginning, and what comes next promises to be even more surprising and deeply moving. This quiet transformation, born from a thoughtful glance and a simple gesture, reveals that the true power of emotional healing lies in the courage to open up to the unexpected and embrace what life offers, even in its hardest moments. The silent reunion that occurred when Grant arrived home earlier than expected was a moment that changed everything. For him, for Ava, and, of course, for those following this unexpected love story. As he opened the door, he saw something he hadn't witnessed in a long time. His daughter laughing wholeheartedly in Emily's arms. That image, seemingly simple at first glance, carried an enormous emotional weight, strong enough to disarm even the most closed, off heart. For a widowed millionaire like Grant, so used to hiding his emotions, that moment was like a mirror, reflecting everything he had lost and everything he still had a chance to regain. It's no surprise that moments like this trigger an internal upheaval, stirring the roots of grief and making space for long-awaited healing. As he stood there, Grant felt a wave of surprise and hope, as if a new chapter in his life had just begun to write itself. What may have looked like a small scene to an outsider was, in truth, a bridge between a painful past and a possible future, one where the weight of loss could finally begin to lift. For anyone who's experienced deep grief, these silent reunions feel like small internal revolutions. They don't need words, because the strongest message comes from the emotion overflowing in the details. The sparkle in his daughter's eyes, the calm presence of Emily, the fresh energy in the air. Grant, who had spent months emotionally absent, saw living proof that affection and connection hadn't disappeared. They were merely buried beneath layers of fear and sorrow. These moments remind us that healing isn't only found in grand gestures, but also in the almost invisible seconds that reignite hope. Grant's reaction to that quiet scene was both restrained and intense. A storm of emotions surged within him. Surprise, relief, even a flicker of jealousy, mixed with gratitude. It's common in moments like these for emotions to surface in conflicting layers, especially for someone who has endured profound loss and built thick emotional armor. For Grant, this reunion marked the beginning of dismantling the walls he had built around himself, preparing the ground for something new, something that promised to be as powerful as it was challenging. Seeing his daughter happy in Emily's arms awakened in him a new understanding that love can appear in many forms, and allowing that emotional diversity is a vital part of healing. The bond between father and daughter had been strained by emotional distance and silence, a natural consequence of their shared trauma. But in that moment, as Ava laughed freely, Grant realized something important. The affection she received from Emily didn't diminish his own role. In fact, it could strengthen it. Grant, so used to running his business with precision, had to learn that in matters of the heart, rigidity only deepens the pain. It's like gripping a rope so tightly that it frays and snaps, while a gentle hold allows it to stay intact. Grant was about to discover that healing doesn't come from denying sadness, but from embracing it with compassion. This lesson, difficult for many widowed millionaires, reveals that true strength lies in vulnerability, in having the courage to listen to what the heart truly needs. It's an invitation for each of us to recognize our own humanity, even in the face of life's greatest hardships. And so, what seemed like a brief moment became the turning point that changed the course of this family's story forever. For Ava, for Grant, and for Emily, that moment represented a renewed hope, proof that love and emotional healing are possible, even after the deepest traumas. With her calm and genuine presence, Emily quietly begins to transform the atmosphere of the Ellington mansion in subtle but powerful ways. Little by little, the small things she does, like baking fresh cakes that fill the house with a warm scent, encouraging Ava to use her imagination through drawing, and gently helping her express emotions, start to fill the empty spaces left by grief and silence. These simple acts, infused with deep intention, begin to humanize a home that once felt more like a cold fortress, a reflection of Grant's closed-off heart. The emotional healing that once felt unreachable starts to emerge in these daily details, proving that great change doesn't always require dramatic events. The once dull and lifeless routine begins to bloom with small but meaningful moments, bringing a lightness and a sense of hope that had long been absent from that home. These gestures, no matter how simple, create an atmosphere where love and the process of overcoming loss can finally take root. By preparing dinners that are simple but thoughtful, even remembering little things, like no cilantro on Ava's plate, a seemingly trivial detail that reveals attentive care, Emily cultivates a feeling of safety and belonging within the household. These small acts become emotional bridges, connecting hearts and quietly strengthening the bond between father and daughter in a deeply effective way. It's fascinating to realize how, for those living with profound grief, the everyday routine often feels meaningless, empty, even frightening. Emily's arrival and her series of tender, thoughtful actions shows that, no matter how difficult things seem, daily life can be fertile ground for love and hope to grow again. Cakes baked with care, drawings made with childish joy, and dinners shared around a table become much more than routine. They are powerful symbols of care, belonging, and rebirth. For Ava, these gestures are like building blocks of a new emotional home, one strong enough to face the pain of loss and the emotional distance that once defined her relationship with her father. And for Grant, even if subtly, this new atmosphere becomes an invitation, a quiet but persistent call to be part of that healing, to open his heart, to accept that emotional recovery is possible, and to allow love to flow again. These everyday moments are living proof that the path to healing after loss is found in the small, the simple, and the sincere. The process of overcoming loss doesn't need to be lonely or grand. More often than not, it's the simplest details that hold the power to transform one's entire life experience. Paying attention to small preferences, respecting the uniqueness of each family member, and tending to daily routines with care create the ideal environment for emotional healing to flourish. By dedicating herself to honoring Ava's preferences and creating moments of lightness and joy, Emily becomes a vital link in transforming the family's dynamic, and that alone carries a powerful message. For anyone going through a similar journey, investing in small gestures and daily details can mark the beginning of a profound change. There is beauty in simplicity, and it's precisely in that space of authenticity where emotional healing finds room to grow. For the widowed millionaire, who bore the immense weight of grief, this gradual transformation might have seemed almost invisible, but its impact ran deep. The house, once silent and burdened with painful memories, now seemed to breathe with life, affection, and hope. This quiet and gradual shift shows how overcoming loss happens in layers, revealing that healing is not a single event but a continuous and delicate process. Often, we don't need to wait for great external changes to feel the warmth of love. We simply need to open our eyes to the details already present, waiting to be noticed and valued. This transformation within the home, which may seem so simple, carries a profound message about the power of presence, patience, and care, essential values in any emotional healing journey. In this way, Emily's small gestures weave a web of affection that begins to envelop Grant and Ava, warming not only their home but also their hearts. Even in the hardest moments, healing is within reach. It only takes awareness, openness, and the courage to welcome the new. This web of affection acts like a thread of light piercing through the darkness of grief, illuminating a path to healing and the possibility of a new beginning. After so long trapped in his pain, the widowed millionaire Grant Ellington finally began to show signs that he was ready to open up emotionally. What once seemed impossible, due to the trauma of losing his wife, now appeared as a real possibility, thanks to Emily's constant presence. Those quiet evenings, when the house had fallen silent and only soft, sincere voices filled the air, became the setting for two broken souls to begin recognizing each other. There, in silence and vulnerability, Grant and Emily found common ground. The experience of loss, fear, and the emotional scars no one sees but that shape a person deeply. With each word spoken, with every shared confession, they built a bridge that spanned not only Grant's silence but his fear of loving again. In those conversations, Grant didn't just admit his fears. He started to realize the importance of allowing himself to feel, even if it left him exposed and uncertain. Emily, in turn, revealed her own wounds, showing that healing is a shared journey, not a solitary one. That deep emotional exchange created a genuine bond between them, capable of breaking down the walls that had locked their emotions away for years. Behind every emotional fortress lies a human being yearning for connection and understanding. This first true connection represented the hope that even the most broken hearts can find a way to rebuild. In accepting his vulnerability, Grant began to understand that emotional healing doesn't signal weakness. It's an act of bravery, the courage to look inward and recognize that pain is part of life, but it doesn't have to become a prison. Grant, a man used to leading and controlling every aspect of his life, faced a tremendous challenge in adapting to this new dynamic of openness and vulnerability. It was like learning to breathe again after years of emotional suffocation. He discovered that healing invisible wounds required accepting help and letting someone in, truly in. Emily, with her sensitivity and patience, proved to be the ideal partner for that journey, always ready to listen and offer support without judgment. Those late night talks became Grant's emotional anchor, a safe space where he could be simply human, without masks or defenses. And that's where the beauty lies. Two wounded hearts, each bearing its own scars, finding strength in each other to move forward, building a new hope together. The relationship between father and daughter also began to take on a new shape through Grant's emotional openness. By allowing himself to feel and share his vulnerabilities with Emily, he began connecting with Ava in a more present and genuine way. This shift in their relationship reinforces the power of emotional healing, showing that love can be rebuilt even after deep trauma. Often, the barriers between people exist because we're afraid to reveal who we truly are. But Grant and Emily show that the courage to open up can be the first step in transforming lives. This path of rebuilding is not easy, but its impact is so profound that it inspires anyone willing to allow themselves to feel, to love, and to be loved again. It's important to emphasize that this first true connection didn't happen instantly or magically. It was the result of a careful construction, grounded in respect, patience, and a sincere desire to know and support each other. Emily didn't come to heal Grant quickly. She came to walk beside him, understanding that overcoming loss is a complex process filled with highs and lows. Thus, this meeting of broken hearts, marked by sincere conversations, confessions, and the sharing of personal scars, signaled the beginning of a new chapter for Grant, Ava, and Emily. A tender moment, rich in emotion and meaning, that reaffirmed the power of unexpected love and the triumph over loss. This connection goes far beyond a budding romance. It's living proof that emotional healing is possible for anyone, as long as they have the courage to open up, to embrace another, and to allow themselves to begin again. The arrival of Robert, a friend from Emily's past, brought back a ghost Grant thought he had left behind: jealousy. For the millionaire, used to controlling every aspect of his life, this unexpected presence stirred emotions he had tried to bury beneath layers of logic and emotional detachment. Insecurity, fear of losing what he was just beginning to build, and that unsettling feeling of competing for space in Emily's heart, and by extension, Ava's, came rushing to the surface with renewed force. Grant realized that no matter how willing he was to leave the past behind and embrace this new love story, there were still emotions he needed to confront head on. The insecurity he felt wasn't just about Emily, it was a reflection of deeper inner doubts. About his ability to be loved again, about whether he truly belonged in this new family dynamic, and about emotional scars that continued to ache, even when he tried to ignore them. Robert's arrival acted as a mirror, reflecting those uncertainties and forcing Grant to face what he had long kept hidden, from others and even from himself. The path to healing from loss is delicate and complex. It's not a straightforward journey. It demands revisiting old fears and deep insecurities in order to learn how to process them in a healthier and more conscious way. The tension brought on by jealousy didn't affect only Grant. It rippled through the entire household, directly impacting Emily and Ava. While Emily did her best to manage the presence of her past friend to avoid misunderstandings, Ava sensed the subtle changes in her father's behavior, his more closed, off demeanor, the watchful eyes trying to control the situation, and at times, a growing distance that hadn't existed before. Grant, used to solving problems with logic and the control that money and power gave him, now faced a very different challenge. Dealing with emotions that couldn't be managed with strategies or concrete action plans. Jealousy forced him out of his comfort zone and into vulnerability, to acknowledge that his insecurities, however painful, were an essential part of his emotional healing. This confrontation with himself, and the need to accept help and understanding, serves as an invitation to anyone navigating similar emotions. Healing from loss doesn't mean never facing difficulties again. It means developing the strength to face them and grow from them. It was through this process that Grant began to evolve, not just as a widowed millionaire, but as a present father and imperfect human being, willing to learn and love again. Emily, in turn, had to exercise great patience and empathy to help Grant navigate such a fragile moment. Robert's presence in her life wasn't the real issue. The true trigger lay in Grant's still open wounds. With sensitivity and honesty, Emily addressed Grant's jealousy without judgment, offering him a safe space to express his emotions and doubts. Her decision to walk away wasn't made lightly or impulsively. Emily had to listen not only to what Grant Ellington said, but also to what he couldn't bring himself to say. She saw, with a sensitivity that goes beyond words, that despite emotional progress and moments of genuine connection, Grant still wasn't ready to fully surrender himself, to truly open up to the emotional healing he'd been seeking since the devastating loss of his wife. That moment, filled with silent pain and palpable tension, didn't just change the dynamic between them, it exposed a fear Grant himself might not have even realized he still carried. The fear of loving again, of being vulnerable, and of risking being hurt once more. By choosing to step away, Emily showed a level of emotional maturity far beyond simply leaving. It was an act of deep love and respect for Grant, for herself, and for the relationship they were still building. Emily understood that true love cannot be forced or rushed, and that emotional healing, especially after such an intense loss, must happen at one's own pace. Her painful choice was also an act of wisdom. It created the space Grant needed to confront his own fears and reflect on what he truly wanted and needed. It was a delicate invitation for him to take responsibility for his own journey through grief and to find his way back to love, reinforcing the truth that, no matter how hard it may be, this process is essential for a genuine new beginning. And the courage to face it is the first step toward true healing. Emily's absence struck Grant deeper than he could have imagined. The house, which had slowly started to breathe again with the presence of that honest and gentle woman, was once again filled with a heavy silence and painful memories. Her departure became a merciless mirror, reflecting everything Grant hadn't yet had the courage to face: the void left by his wife, the paralyzing fear of opening up again, the lingering insecurity about his ability to love and be loved, and the anxiety of not failing as a father to little Ava. It was in this space of solitude and reflection that the millionaire found himself at an emotional crossroads. Continue hiding behind grief and fear, or finally allow himself to love and be loved again, granting healing a place in his life. Emily's departure also brought a significant shift in Ava's world. She began to notice with surprising sensitivity the fragile new family dynamic. To her, the relationship between her father and the nanny wasn't just about routine or companionship. It was a safe haven in a world still shadowed by the loss of her mother. Emily's absence left a gap that echoed throughout Ava's tender universe, stirring confusion, insecurity, and even fears about the future of her family. The journey of healing from loss, then, wasn't just Grant's, it was also Ava's, as she too had to learn how to cope with absence and hold on to hope in new, fragile ways. By choosing to walk away, Emily not only protected herself, but also left Grant with a powerful and silent invitation to find himself, to grow stronger, and to be ready for the transformation that awaited him. This moment, laden with sorrow, also carries a quiet yet resilient hope, where the fear of loving again is revealed to be fragile, human, and deeply real. The blow of Emily's absence hit Grant harder than he ever expected. A man used to control and the illusion of stability, he felt the emptiness she left behind like a painful echo in every corner of the house. Suddenly, the silence screamed, and the absence of those small shared routines revealed just how much her unexpected love and genuine presence had brought real life into what was once a cold and closed-off home. That moment, so seemingly simple, was a kind of awakening for Grant, who had remained imprisoned in his grief and emotional rigidity. It was there, in that empty and aching space, that he began to see the urgent need for change. Grant realized that without Emily, he could no longer pretend he was okay. The walls of the house, once silent witnesses to his restrained sorrow, now mirrored the solitude and vulnerability he had worked so hard to hide. This realization hit like a shockwave, destabilizing his routine and forcing him to confront the truth. The love Emily had brought wasn't just a fleeting comfort. It was a light capable of warming broken hearts and rebuilding the fragile connection between a grieving father and his daughter. This realization, though painful, was also liberating. Grant began to understand that healing from loss wasn't about denying pain. It was about letting new feelings take root, bringing with them hope and the promise of new life. The internal motivation that arose in Grant after Emily stepped away was more than just a desire to win someone back. It was a profound transformation that shook his beliefs and priorities. He realized that his life needed to stop being a mirror of painful memories and start becoming a space for the present and the future, where unexpected love could bloom. This emotional turning point showed itself in small daily actions. A more attentive glance at Ava, a sincere effort to communicate openly, and a search for real connection. Grant began to understand that healing isn't a final destination, but a continuous path built on conscious choices and the courage to face the unknown. Upon waking to this new reality, Grant also came to appreciate vulnerability as a path to true strength. He recognized that his fear of loving again wasn't a sign of weakness, but a natural protective mechanism, a hurdle to be overcome with gentleness and patience with himself. This understanding created a space for him to reconcile with his emotional scars, accepting them as part of his story, but not as definitive barriers. The relationship between Grant and Ava gained new depth. Acknowledging the absence created by Emily and recognizing the impact she had on his daughter motivated Grant to become a more present, affectionate, and understanding father. This shift in the father-daughter relationship powerfully illustrates how love can heal old wounds and build stronger, more authentic bonds. This emotional turn marks a pivotal moment in Grant's life. The inner motivation he discovered after Emily left not only rekindled the flame of love and hope, but also signaled the start of a new, more mature and self-aware chapter in his journey of healing. The millionaire was now ready to face his fears, make room for love, and rebuild his life with courage and authenticity. Grant had never been a man accustomed to emotional exposure. His millionaire lifestyle, defined by power and control, kept him distant from displays of vulnerability he often equated with weakness. But on that quiet afternoon, as he approached Emily's simple home, everything changed. His decision to go there wasn't impulsive or frivolous. It was a deeply conscious and courageous choice that pulled him out of his emotional comfort zone and put him face to face with his most intimate feelings. That step meant far more than just attempting to rekindle a relationship. It was a definitive affirmation that he was ready to leave his painful past behind and embrace the healing he had long avoided. Crossing the small gate of her modest home, Grant carried not just the scars of his past, but also the weight of the internal transformation that had been unfolding quietly. He understood he couldn't erase the past, the traumatic death of his wife during Ava's birth, the lonely nights, the fear of loving again. But he was determined to build something new, grounded in true love, trust, and vulnerability. His words, firm yet gentle, breathed life into the moment. "I didn't come on impulse. I came by choice." This wasn't just a speech to Emily, it was a promise to himself, a declaration reflecting his resolve to seek healing and rebuild his relationship with his daughter. That encounter revealed a new side of Grant, a face of vulnerability he had always hidden beneath the armor of the emotionally closed widower. In Emily's presence, he opened his heart, revealing his doubts, fears, and sincere longing for a fresh start. This emotional surrender didn't weaken him, it empowered him, forging a deeper, more genuine bond between them. Emily, in turn, received Grant's words with a mixture of surprise, emotion, and renewed hope. She too carried her own scars, but she recognized in that gesture the certainty that the man who once seemed so distant was now willing to change, face his ghosts, and build a solid and authentic relationship. The reconciliation that began in that moment wasn't a fairy tale. It was a real, delicate process, where both acknowledged that the unexpected love that had grown between them needed to be nurtured with patience, respect, and mutual commitment. The request for a fresh start wasn't only a promise of love, it was a renewed commitment to be a present, loving, and attentive father. Ava, who had witnessed her father's changes, felt safe and cherished seeing that his relationship with Emily could grow stronger, creating a more harmonious and welcoming family environment. This evolution in the father-daughter relationship is a powerful testament to the ability of unexpected love to heal old wounds, promote emotional recovery, and build bonds that endure time and challenges. Emily arrived unannounced. No ceremony, no speech, just a small suitcase in her hand and a smile that mixed nervousness and hope. Grant opened the door and saw her standing there, with the same serene sparkle in her eyes that had unsettled him the first time. But this time he didn't step back. He reached out, pulled her close, and let the silence say everything that words could not. Ava, hearing the voice of the nanny she loved, ran down the hallway, leapt into Emily's arms, and buried her face in her neck, as if trying to prove she was real. In that instant, at that doorway, something invisible and powerful happened. A house that had once been cold and empty began to breathe again. Routine soon transformed. The air filled with new scents, cookies baking, fresh coffee, buttered toast on Sunday mornings. Emily filled the spaces not with things, but with presence. Ava, who had been quiet, now sang loudly while sketching at the kitchen table. Grant, little by little, traded long meetings for afternoons in the park, silence for stories at the table, and fatigue for a renewed desire to be there. Things weren't perfect, there were messes, toys on the floor, and sometimes dishes piled up. But there was life. For the first time in a long time, that house was more than just a place to live, it was a home. Of course, there were conflicts. Emily and Grant didn't agree on everything. Sometimes they'd clash over schedules, movies, or how to handle Ava's fears. But they learned to listen, not to win the argument, but to understand the other. Emily still carried scars from a past she preferred to keep hidden. Grant, for his part, battled instincts of control, fear, and withdrawal stemming from the loss of his wife. Yet every night still ended with a heartfelt good night, a kiss on their daughter's forehead, and a silent promise to keep trying. They didn't erase the past. Ellen's photos remained on the shelf. Ava sometimes cried for memories she barely understood, and Grant would occasionally stare into empty spaces, as though speaking with someone gone. Emily never tried to take a place that wasn't hers. Instead, She created her own space, as a woman, as a partner, as a source of affection. The connection between the three of them grew slowly, like a bridge reinforced over time. Nothing was rushed. Every hug, every evening conversation, every shared meal became a piece of that new structure, imperfect, yet increasingly solid. Small victories became emotional triumphs. The day Ava called Emily Mom without thinking. The moment Grant confessed he didn't know how he had lived before Emily. The times they all laughed together until their stomachs ached. Happiness wasn't constant, but it was real. There were tough days, days filled with insecurity, doubt, and long silences. But now they faced it all together. Emily stood strong, Grant learned to yield, and Ava taught lightness with her innocence. And it was this imperfect, yet harmonious dance that turned the ordinary into the extraordinary. One autumn afternoon, as the three of them sat on the porch watching the sunset, Grant held Emily's hand and whispered, "I can't promise I'll be perfect, but I promise I won't run away again." She smiled. There was no need for perfection. What they had there, between laughter, the scent of cake, scattered toys, and healing hearts, was more than enough. It was love, it was family, and above all, it was real. And sometimes real is all we need to truly be happy. This story isn't just about a man who rediscovered love. It's about the kind of healing that happens only when someone chooses to enter our life gently and stay even when leaving would be easier. Grant Ellington, a man marked by losses and silences, needed to confront his deepest fears to discover that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's a bridge. And Emily Carter, with her disarming simplicity, showed that loving someone isn't about fixing them, it's about standing by them while they rebuild. It wasn't money or promises or grand declarations that transformed that house. It was the tiny gestures, a dinner without cilantro, a note left on a pillow, a respected silence, a non-judgmental ear, small things that can fill the empty spaces left by life's losses. Ava, the little bridge between two broken hearts, was the spark that lit their new beginning. With her purity, she helped two adults understand that true love doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to be present. And in that thoughtfully rebuilt home, brick by brick of trust, the three of them discovered that family is what we construct with intention, with patience, and with the courage to begin again. Because in the end, what truly changes our lives isn't the grand moments. It's those that, even in silence, say, "I'm here, and I choose to stay." If this story touched your heart, give it a like and leave a comment sharing your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful and life-changing inspirations.